Welcome, everybody, to this month's Tuesday Talks. I am Jessica Rosenblatt. I am the Executive Director of the Ohio Arts Professionals Network, and I am so glad that you all are here joining us today. For those of you who are new, this Tuesday Talks is a free virtual learning series that we host throughout the year. The sessions are held once a month on Tuesdays at noon and are open to both members and non-OAPN members. And this series is one of the ways that we work to educate, connect, and strengthen our performing arts communities by bringing together presenters, artists, agents, and leaders from across Ohio and beyond to share their knowledge and learn from one another. Before we dive into today's Tuesday Talks, I do want to take a moment to thank our 2026 annual sponsors who are year-long supporters of OAPN. Our platinum sponsor is Lemon Grenade Creative. Our diamond sponsors are Ohio Contemporary Ballet, Magic Rocks, illusionist Leon Etienne, Well House Hotel Tapestry Collection by Hilton, and Courtyard Marriott. Our gold sponsors are Bill Blagg, Magic and Illusion, and VBO Tickets. For the full list of our sponsors, please visit oapn.org. All right, now on to today's Tuesday Talk sessions. We are here with J.G. Decker, who is a conference specialist with APAP, also known as the Association of Performing Arts Professionals. And we're going to talk about starting local, scaling smart, preparing for the next stage. This is a practical conversation on why starting with your local and regional consortias matter, from understanding showcasing expectations and tech riders to contracts and managing your tour schedule. This session will help you build the foundation you need to grow strategically and know when you're ready for the next stage. So without further ado, please welcome J.G. Decker.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. As Jessica said, I'm JG Decker. I'm the conference specialist here at APAP, the Association of Performing Arts Professionals. Before we get into things, I always like to bring the APAP tradition of doing a land acknowledgement. So APAP is located in Washington, D.C., which is the capital of the United States, on the lands of the Anacostan and Piscataway peoples. Who have stewarded this land throughout time. We also want to pay homage to them, their elders, both past and present, as well as the enslaved people who came to this land and who continue to inhabit this land. I'm personally located in Massachusetts, on the lands of the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, and Wampanoag peoples, formerly known as the Shaman or as Boston, Massachusetts. So we'll take this conversation very lightly. I'm a very informal person in many ways. We'll talk about APAP as a larger entity, and then how we kind of branch out from there to regionals and state consortium. So if I go a little bit fast, feel free to put anything into the chat, or ask me to repeat something, or raise your hand. Whether that's physically, I have everybody up on my screen, or to use the raise the hand function. But anyway, APAP, or the Association of Performing Arts Professionals, in our conference that we host in January in New York, which this year is January 15th to the 19th at the New York Hilton Midtown, is the world's largest performing arts booking and touring conference, which is great. It brings over 3,000 different individuals from across North America and internationally to New York to see over 1,000 showcases, over 300 exhibiting organizations, and along with about 30 to 40 professional development sessions. We're a part of a collection of people in January known as Jan Arts NYC. A lot of these organizations are very specific. So you have Winter Jazz Fest, you have Under the Radar Theater Festival. A lot of these or Global Fest. A lot of these organizations have been incubated by APAP in the past because we have been at the same place in New York for the past 50 years. So we have a long-standing tradition of being well connected in New York with what's happening around. I always tell people, like, right off the bat, that APAP is like, it's like going to the supermarket, that it's for the performing arts, that there's everything you could possibly imagine all in one place. And unlike some other conferences, which we'll get into in a little bit, APAP doesn't tell you where to go. It's almost like a farmer's market, in the sense that, like, just go and get whatever you want. And we'll see you at checkout. Or maybe I won't see you at checkout. Maybe you just like popped in and like you're gonna take an apple and like leave. I don't know. We're very loosey-goosey in that way, which I think works really well with where we're placed at by the time we get to January. Um, because a lot of our conferences, our sister conferences, so like OAPN, WAL, the Western Arts Alliance, MAX, Midwest Arts Expo, happen earlier in the season. So they're happening in September and October, which is traditionally about the beginning of the touring and booking season, when you've had this sudden presence of shows that have happened in the summer, and then everybody's kind of tuning into, well, let's think about next season or future seasons down the way. And we'll get into how things have changed since the pandemic. APAP is in January, so often we're the last conference that people are going to go to. How it's been happening after the pandemic is we are the last kind of, as one of our board members, Mark Wilson, over at the Zell Center in Pennsylvania said, we are your save your ass event. And which is really great because it makes for a very fun, eclectic, and interesting environment that makes APAP just a little bit different. Um, so I'll break it down from different sectors of how APAP might look for people and how I often will explain to them how you might be approaching it. So we'll start with what I think is probably the easiest one, which is being a presenter. Um, I often push against this idea that presenters are the ones who have all the power in the space. Presenters are a key component and are often the conduit for and are the conduit for how we're going to get the art out into the community. Um, and presenters, I think, have the unique position of being able to come into APAP and absorbing everything that's being tossed at them. Um, APAP presenters have the full reign of the space, so they can go into the expo hall, they can go to meetings, they can set up meetings beforehand, they can go to professional development sessions, they can go to showcasing. APAP has over 1,000 showcases. We'll get into that a little bit more. Um, but the biggest advice that I always give to my presenters who are coming is to not do everything. There's often this idea that I'm going to come to APAP and I'm going to go, or any conference, and I'm going to do everything. I'm going to see all the showcases I want to see. I'm going to go to all the professional development sessions. And my first question is, well, do you plan to sleep or eat or like go and be a human being? Because you're not going to see it all. That's like, like just like when you go to a supermarket for the first time, you're not going to see everything. I've been going to the same place for 5 years and I just discovered like this new tomato sauce. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna find new things and you're gonna experience new things. So for presenters, I always say that it's keep like the most open of minds. And that's hard to say because as I've alluded to before, things have changed since the pandemic. Often presenters are coming into a space with a little bit more hecticness where sometimes by the time you get to APAP, you're not planning for August or September or April or the summer. You were planning a year out in advance. Now, because of how things have changed and the rapidness of that change, people are coming a little bit more hectically at actually, I need to plan something. I have slots to fill in April or May or the summer. I'm still working on contracts. And that's on top of the usual time that we're getting our subscription sales out for presenters, which is in that March, April, maybe even May, depending on who you are, time period. So you got to get subscription sales out, you got to get contracts out. Whereas APAP used to be kind of like that downtime afterwards, that no longer exists. And I'll explain how that doesn't exist for anybody else either. Um, but that's kind of a little spiel I'll give on to presenters. Our next largest group at APAP, let me go back. Presenters make up over 2/3 of our attendees. We are very, very presenter heavy. Um, Actually, let me even back up just a bit. Presenters. I always do have to explain presenters in the way that we use it at APAP are the buyers of the art. Um, so, from our next group there is that we have our agents. And I'm going to group agents and artists who come to sell work as well in kind of this larger sphere. I'll talk more about artists in a bit, but the way that APAP works is that if you come to APAP as an agent or an artist selling work, you don't actually necessarily have to exhibit. Most do. Like I said, we have over 300 opportunities for people to exhibit, for organizations to exhibit in our expo hall. Um, this past year, I actually ended up outselling our expo hall and had to go out and find even more space, which is a great problem to have, and I hope that continues. Um, and I'll even state, well, no, I'll state that a little bit later. For our agents and artists who are selling, um, there's kind of two tracks that we don't necessarily design, but that people kind of do. It's either you're going to be exhibiting and you're going to go that route. Maybe you're going to be showcasing as well, or you're not going to be exhibiting, still might be showcasing, but you're going to use the meeting space that APAP has on site. Um, my biggest advice that I always give to my folks that are coming is that for my agent folk is never come alone. Always have at least have two people because those are long hours in the expo hall or in a meeting. You could have meetings truly at any point in the day. I've walked downstairs and there are two people having a discussion about a Dolly Parton impersonator um, at 2 a.m. and they're kind of working through bits of the contract. So, I stress that be a human being as well. Go to our professional development sessions. We do curate our professional development sessions not with one specific sector of the community in mind, but everybody, including agents, and how things are changing in that regard, and artists who sell their work as well, are individual artists. Um, and yeah, yeah. Our next biggest group is going to be the artists. Um, and artists, kind of like I said, there's the artists who sell work who come into and do our expo hall, and then there's the artists who are often with their agent. Maybe they're the one that's actually showcasing, or they're kind of coming in and exploring the space for the first time, or they're just self-represented and they're trying to meet the land out. Our artists we tend to be very heavy on New York-based folks, just as the fact that we're in New York and it's much easier for artists to get there. I will say that having artists in our space is a very large priority for APAP because all our work is done for the benefit of artists. You guys are central to our operations as people in the arts, and it's a big reason why APAP has made sure that our pricing is a lot lower. That where someone that's paying, let's say, $800 an agent or a presenter to be in the space, you guys are paying 300. Except for this year. This year, you guys would be paying $70, and that's because we have an anniversary this year. But more on that later. Um, and we'll talk about a little bit of that. Um, and then our last big group of folks are going to be folks that are like vendors. So we do get a lot of vending organizations, ticketing, mostly lighting companies, sound, or people that kind of fall out of that area, kind of like AI. We're embracing AI in a positive way that it is can be good and beneficial to the arts as long as we as arts people are involved in it. And that's what I will say about AI. So we do get vendors who come through, whether they're exhibiting or not. And that's our fourth and probably our largest, one of our smaller groups. The last one would be educators. We were trying a big push of getting educators into the space as well, and students, which if you know any students who want to come to APAP, I give free registration. All they got to do is give me 15 hours and I will give them the world. Um, so I'm going to take a quick little pause here. I know I've just spewed a lot of information before I go on next. Cool. We're all feeling good? Great. So the next part I'll talk about is kind of some of the different factors of APAP. I'll start with what I think is the biggest, most cumbersome, and probably most terrifying piece, which is showcasing. Um, as I've said before, APAP hosts over 1,000 showcases in New York. These are happening both on-site at our venue, the New York Midtown, as well as off-site. Um, And this can be really daunting, as an artist or an agent who's maybe thinking about showcasing, or even as a presenter. And like I said previously, is don't do everything. You don't want to go and see everything, even though I know you probably do. We do a really good job of, well, let me back up a bit. If you're looking to showcase at APAP, I encourage you to please talk to me, or any of the team members, because we will set you in the right direction. Because there's those two different facets. There's the on-site experience or the off-site experience. APAP, because we've been in New York for over 50 years doing the same conference, we have a wonderful collection of organizations that actually do book, like they stop programming just for us most of the time. So if for instance, most of our dance showcases will happen at the New York City Center, and they program that weekend for us. Now, APAP doesn't produce showcases. I should point that out. Everything is independently produced, and the ones like the dance ones happen through the Dance Managers Collective. But most of these spaces have programming built in so that they can accommodate APAP artists coming in, renting the space, and doing their showcase. And people do travel all over for their showcases. So I don't want people to fret that, you're not next to the Hilton. I've seen people go all the way out to Queens and Jersey for specific showcasing, maybe because they already have the space, or they can, for instance, the people that I know that often do it in Queens, they offer a an opportunity to go to the Steinway factory and view how pianos are made, which is really cool. So people get creative around these showcases, whether they're selling drink tickets or maybe a free meal, or the opportunity to meet somebody really cool. People get really, really, really creative with that. And that also happens inside, because if you say to me, JG, I really want to participate inside the Hilton, we have a wonderful collection of about 10 showcase producers that we've worked with year over year. In this call, you'll probably hear me call out my favorite person, which is Crandall Rogers, who also oversees showcasing at some regional conferences, which we'll talk about again, like Max and OAPN. Um, my thorough line there, because people always ask me like, "Oh, well, would you showcase in the Hilton?" And I always tell them that I would let Crandall perform my open heart surgery. So the answer is yes, you should. Um, but there are different flavors of it. Inside the Hilton, you'll often find that it's not going to be maybe so much dance, because we're building our spaces inside, effectively conference rooms. So a lot of our dance organizations will go to the Ailey or Martha Graham or the Dance Managers Collective. A lot, what you'll find often in the Hilton are more theater, more tribute, more jazz. It still runs the gamut. You'll still find classical music, but classical music might go to the Kaufman or Carnegie, or other spaces. So this is where, having a conversation with APAP staff, we can really kind of help you figure out where those spaces to go. For people that are attending showcases, again, we ask a lot of questions of our showcasers, and I mean a lot. I wish I could show you I'm still building my showcase listing directory right now, because we get very minute with our folks of asking about, even to the point of, is your space ADA accessible? Will you be recording it? Who do you get in touch with? How do you actually go about finding and booking this work? And that will be all available on our app as we get a little bit closer. Um, but we do make it as easy and straightforward as possible, because APAP is a entirely digital conference, and we don't have any paper products. That's our push to be green. Um, so definitely use all of our materials that we're giving you to go out and find these showcasings. We've really invested heavily, we've invested a lot of our membership dollars, a lot of our conference dollars in making a better system. Um, so it's there for use. I'm gonna pause if anybody has anything on showcasing.
I have a I you mentioned that JG, hello, Jared, here in Madison, Wisconsin. question for you about offsite showcases. How is APAP coordinating or helping to funnel potential showcasers to those different locations? And I have a follow-on after you're done with that too.
Yeah, totally. It's one of those interesting things that APAP doesn't. I'll never tell people that oh, you can only go see showcases on site or off site. We don't, and that's the whole part of or that they're independent. Um, the best way that it is funneling is that, if you ask me, I think you should always have a night on and a night off. I will tell people that throughout that, start your night at on site and then go off site, and kind of build your schedule so that you're going further and further out. Part of when we're collecting that information for people that are showcasing is we're very detailed in how do you get to your venue. I really will be expecting that if you, Jared, are showcasing, let's say at the public, I want you to be able to put into your showcase listing that, like, great, you're at the Hilton, you're going to take the A train down, or you're going to take the 602 bus, or, this is the way that you're going to enter, or this is how you're going to get tickets. We get very minute in how we're going to ask and funnel those questions so that people are making those decisions and they're planning their conference well in advance. And you'll hear me say this a couple times, is that the real work of APAP is not done in January. It's going to be done in October, in November, in early December, as people are publishing their showcase listings, as they're setting meetings. Um, I hope that helps.
Yeah, and then another question is from the reverse side of that. How are you connecting potential showcasers with those offsite venues?
Yeah, so we have a running list. I've just redeveloped it actually, of all spaces that we have a connection with, and also spaces that people have just used in the past. Because part of the information that I'm collecting is, who is the site, um, who's the manager of the site, so that we as APAP can make a connection, and that's how we've been curating and building this list so that it is the most accurate it has been since before me.
Great, and that's on APAP 365.
It is not at this very moment. You'll find an older list. If you message me, it will be published probably right when we do our actual registration, which is around June 15th. But I can give people sneak peeks, and I have a list. It's not the prettiest, but I have lists.
Happy to receive that if you want me to send you a note. Uh,
Yeah, definitely. I'll put my email in the chat as well so that people can reach out to me.
I have yours because you were one of my best volunteers at Midwest Arts Expo last year, so thank you.
I had a question. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm not in the right, like I thought we were talking about local and regional groups, and not about the APAP conference, but so I just wanted to clarify that because I've been to APAP a bunch, and JG, everything you're saying is absolutely 100%. I agree. Like it can be very overwhelming. You have to pace yourself. You have to be a human too. But I also um, am just wondering, are we going to flip to talking about the regional and local consortiums or?
Yeah, totally. We're gonna flip to talking about that. I kind of wanted to start with APAP at like the top of it and then kind
Okay.
of branch out down from there. And how what I think and how APAP thinks is probably the most effectual use of your time. But yes, we will.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll speed run through exhibiting real quick, and then we're actually going to do the flip and talk about how I think that scaling up works with our regional partners. So, like I said at the top of the meeting, there's over 300 opportunities for people to exhibit at APAP. This represents about 310 organizations. which are constantly changing. And these are from very large agencies like the Team, formerly known as Wasserman Music, or CAA, to very small, independently produced artist self-represented organizations. We have some little bit of differences in how we have people register, but all that information will be on our website. Um, and that. But let's do the flip. I'm going to change it just slightly, and I'll talk about state consortiums in a small first, and then we'll talk about the regionals and then APAP. Um, as most of our folks have come from that system of work of being in, they're starting out, and I'm always pushing people to go to our state provincial or our regional partners first. Because if you call me and you say, "Hey JG, I have this show and I want to bring it to APAP," or "Hey, I'm a new agent, I've got a small list of rosters," or "I'm a new presenter, like we've just started kind of booking." I'm going to say to you as an artist that maybe has a show or an agent, be like, "Cool. Have you been booked at least 25 times? Do you have a one sheet? Do you know what a one sheet is? What about your tech writer?" I'm going to ask some questions that by the time you get to APAP, um, you really need to have honed those skills. Both as, as a presenter, as an agent, as an artist, as a vendor. Um, because the regionals are really where you're going to establish those community connections, and you're gonna find like the flow that works for you. For example, one of my favorite, and probably I'm biased because it's my rabbi's wife, but she's an agent for violinists. She goes to WA or Max and she exhibits. She does not exhibit at APAP. She's like, "It's too much. I can't deal with it because I need things to be a little bit lighter," and they flow lighter at WA and Max and OAPN, because at APAP everybody is stressed. They've just come off the holidays. Maybe they've done a series of holiday shows. And because the world is zany and funding is terrible right now, and transportation keeps going up, that like she's like, "I just can't deal with that." Other people are like, "I need to go to APAP to be able to finalize booking my series." But I always tell people that, especially the young ones and the people that are starting out new, that you have to go to the regionals to really form those connections, because they're going to serve you later on. Um, because it's such a small community that everybody is constantly moving between the different conferences and different worlds. You know, like I just saw Jared at Max, and I'll see him at APAP in a few short months. People that I've seen at WA or Arts Northwest or Montana, I'm going to see at Max or APAP or elsewhere. And this is a really great opportunity for people to form those relationships so that when they're moving up that scale, that it doesn't feel like you're a fish out of water. Um, and that's really kind of the big benefits of some of these, is that because you can be a little bit slower, you can make more mistakes, or you can take time to learn a little bit more, is going to make you, when you get to APAP and you're kind of in front of a larger group of people, that it just feels a little bit more comfortable. Um, and especially for like our artists that are just entering in, a lot of I've noticed that there's a larger uptick of self-represented artists coming into the space, who don't necessarily have all the language down pat. Often I find that even with my boutique agencies, they have a little bit more gravitas with certain language that they're already working with, that they're feeling comfortable with, that they already can, hold a conversation in front of a presenter and be able to pitch a show that maybe a self-represented artist doesn't. And we're finding that there's more and more self-represented artists coming into our spaces who need to have that language. And APAP is not that space to learn that. It is APAP is like being a crash test dummy. It's going to go really fast. It's going to hit you real hard. And a lot of people who come into that space don't have all the tools, and they're going to mark out APAP, and they're going to mark out WA, and they're going to mark out Max and OAPN, and just think, "Ah, the heck with it," because I didn't have a great time. Um, Whereas like having a better time at a smaller regional where it's, I don't know. Where are you from, Lisa? I'm going to use you as my example as my guinea pig.
Illinois.
Illinois. Great.
So
Like up like
Max, no,
like
I live
Chicagoland
I live
or
in Chicago, but my Max is my regional.
got it. Yeah. So like if you're coming, I mean, obviously if you're coming to Max or, for the first time, um, and you already are familiar with, are you a presenter, an agent, artist?
Presenter.
Presenter. So you're obviously going to be familiar with like Tommy Hensel, who's at Elgin,
Not
or some other
anymore.
folk. Oh, well, that's true. Tommy did just retire. Darn, I can't use him as my guinea pig. But you're going to
But
be
yeah,
familiar with people that you already know, just from your local circle or just from being able to be like, oh my God, you're at this center. You guys just presented this show. Oh, let's, have a conversation or talk or there's something really comforting about knowing that like there's agents that are based in like I'm thinking of like Rosemary Hable of Kids Connect. She's in Wisconsin and it's like, oh, you're an agent who produces across the nation. But you're based like literally 10 minutes down the road from me. So there's like that you can form those tighter connections that by the time you get to APAP, they really do feel better. And you can, like I keep saying, like APAP goes really, really fast. The conversations happen really fast too. I find that people are not having, they're not doing that, that they're not doing so much of the small talk chit chat. It goes very straight into business very quickly. Whereas like when I was at WA and Max, I was talking to people about, I didn't talk about APAP at all. I'm asking about like, how are your kids? Like, oh, what show were you guys doing? Like, how was your summer? Things like that. By the time you get to APAP, it's really just like, hey, I need to book and I need it to happen. So yeah, but I'm gonna pause there. Just in case anybody has any questions, more specifically about how we kind of look at the scale up.
Question for you. Um, can you touch on the artistry? I know we talked a little bit about the, like tech packs, having your one sheet, but the level of artistry coming into APAP, is there an artist that you would say really don't waste your time or resources coming here until you've um, experienced OAPN or Max and have built your relationships and tour schedule there? Is there a price level? Like what's your input on the artist coming into APAP?
Yeah, I don't think if there's I think we can all kind of sense this and sometimes in folks, if there's a certain amount of like desperation that like it's a make it or break it, um, don't come to APAP. Like, because I will tell anybody coming to APAP that like your goal should just be walk away with 5 good connections. And that's hard to tell people that are investing thousands of dollars to be there, just to be there, not to just showcase, not to just exhibit, but to just be in the space, which is really great and it's wonderful. But I've had people say to me, oh, I might have to sell my car. No, don't do that. Don't do that. You can trust. You can make a I believe in the work of APAP and I believe strongly in it. But one of my best friends does not go to any conferences. He lives in Milwaukee. I've invited him to Max. He's like, I get all my work. I've been doing it for 40 years. Like, I'm just set in my ways. As much as I try hard. This year I am getting him to go to Max though. So, rest assured, it finally has worked. But like it took him a minute to kind of make that jump because there's the worry there of like I've been doing things for so long, and I say that that's the type of person that I do want to into the space. But to go back to the type of people that I don't think benefit from it is that if you're really truly are starting out, like, and you're really like maybe you've had a single booking somewhere, that's where OAPN is great. that's where going, and you're already in Ohio. That's great, or you're in Southern Michigan or somewhere close by. Those are going to be the spaces you want to go into because I've seen artists, um, like for instance, I've just recently changed my pricing structure of like when I've asked people about like, well, how much is your booking fee? I no longer ask, I no longer break it down below $5,000. Like that's kind of where the baseline is that I'm finding most of my people are at is at 5,000. But if you're telling me that like, oh, well, I book at $1,000 and I'm like, okay, maybe you should go to a different conference and like let's explore what that scale up is looking like. Because I'm already kind of seeing where your mindset is and where you are currently in your career. And that's not a bad thing. We've all got to be somewhere. But it does mean that there's a little bit more work that needs to happen because you're going to be in a room with people where there's presenters who are literally going to be like, "Oh yeah, like I'm booking this dance show for $75,000." You know, and that can be quite intimidating if you're just like, "Oh, well, I've just only had a couple bookings and like I've collectively made maybe $4 or $5,000 and I kind of actually haven't even break even and I'm still kind of worried about like what even is like a one sheet." Those are the people that I'm just like, go and find those skills, like APAP, we can't teach you that right off the bat, and you have to come into the space knowing certain language.
I have another question. Um, so I guess in my mind, I see it that, the OAPN world, I see it from our side where the artists that are coming in to showcase are self-represented or they have agencies that are in the smaller to mid level agency range. So presenters can come to our conference and book an artist that's anywhere from 1,500 to roughly about 13,000 is what we see here. I think max you're gonna see the artistry kind of no less than 5,000. And Janet, maybe you can hop in here up to maybe 25,000 at max. And then I'm assuming APAP is going to be your really 10,000 up to possibly even $100,000 sort of artists. So do you guys see artists coming that are self-represented to Max, or is everybody, or do the artists tend to be on medium to large level agencies representation?
Because the APAP showcases aren't curated, right?
No, APAP does not curate showcases at all. Unlike Max doesn't curate either. WA, OAPN, I believe Montana. Does Montana do jury showcasing?
Yes,
I can't.
yes, they
Yes, they
do,
Yes.
do.
and so should I think arts market as well because we're all on that same juried showcase
Mhm.
schedule.
Right. And if you're asking about max in terms of artist fees, because we are attracting some of the same agencies that JG is talking about, including the team, which was Wasserman and WME and CAA, were some of those agencies have artists that go into six-figure artist fees. So the artist fees that are at max can be as low as $1,000 because there are a lot of self-represented artists that are from the region. And because we're back in Wisconsin, from that Wisconsin region, all the way up to six-figure artist fees. So you get the full range. And I'm Janet Herman Barlow. I'm the administration coordinator for Max, but I'm also an OAPN person for more years than I care to remember.
If anyone doesn't already know Janet, yes.
And I would like to add that I think that there's a piece of just being geographically close here as well that really plays a part in that decision of where folks are going to go. Um, APAP we're very coast heavy. We get a lot of folks from the West Coast, and we sure as heck get a lot of people from the East Coast and Canada. Even now, just because it's easier for folks to get down there, there's a high concentration of um, performing arts centers and just agencies right there. Lots of these larger agencies also have offices in New York, or people maintain a presence in New York because a lot of their artists live in the tri-state area. That's where I'm always like, if I'm having a conversation and someone's just like, oh, I live in Ohio, I'm like, well, have you heard of OAPN? Have you heard of Max? Because you should be doing these things. Because if you're thinking about APAP, you should already be thinking about these other entities. And if you're not, you should be going to them as well because they're there, they're in your backyard, and like what is the investment is different. APAP again, thousands of dollars, but if you live, I think you guys are in Toledo this year or did I get that wrong? Dayton?
We no, we're actually down in we were in Toledo for the last two conference cycles, but we're down in Hamilton, Ohio, which is sort of about 45 minutes west and northish, I believe, of Cincinnati.
Oh, perfect. Great. Because like if you happen to be an artist who is based in Cincinnati or, Dayton, maybe even Columbus, that's a day trip, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe a very long day depending on where you're coming in from. But that investment is going to look a little different so that it allows you to maybe save funds, maybe save um some time. I have a lot of folks that, at APAP, they come for just a day because the next day they got to fly out to California because they got a show. And that might be true for you as well. That there's so many different ways that you can do these conferences. I don't think Janet will tell as much as Janet, and Jess were like, I want you to be there all the days. If you can invest a day to come in, that's even more worthwhile than just not being in the space.
Yeah, I always like to share the our story when we came into the OAPN world. I started in this world on the agent side. My wife is a musician, singer-songwriter, and we did it all, all on our own. There was no big agencies ever involved. But when we were told by an outsider to join our regional consortias, that was the first place they told us to start, OAPN, and at the time it was Arts Midwest. And when we went into the world, you just don't understand this when you haven't gone to see it in person, right? There's only so much advertising and marketing our little small organizations can do. And when we went into it, we spent 3 days. We got an exhibit hall booth, and just the only hope was to go and meet people. And Janet was one of my first folks that we met at the 2015 conference here. But I always tell people just go, right? Like, especially to these statewide consortiums, like OAPN, you're investing, I think, we max out at about 450 for a 3 day conference pass. Usually your meals are included. The hotels are cost effective. They're, under the $200 range, and exhibit hall, if it's not already sold out, it's an affordable investment to make for you, where you can probably do the entire experience for under $1,000 depending on travel. Max, same area, right? You're going to be under that $2,000 level as the artist agent to go in. And if your fees are over 1,000, you usually can make it back if you make that one connection. But of course, the goal is to make more than one. But then you learn so much as this artist coming into the world, and presenters can identify which conferences to go to based on what kind of talent is either showcasing for a juried or an independent showcase, based on what they have in their budget, right? So you might go to APAP to keep those connections with CAA and the bigger agencies and get your $75,000 act, but you might need to be able to fill that space with your $1,000 to $10,000 acts, which I think you're really finding at these smaller conferences. But of course, it's in the presenter world, I would love some feedback. How do you guys feel about conferences? Is it exciting to be able to go to your statewide and regional and national, or is it exhausting? And would you rather have a one-stop shop for your $1,000, $2,000 to $75,000 act? Not every presenter responded at once, but
I will say, a lot has been said about people who are coming up in the business. In my experience, I've only been here for 4.5, going on 5 years. So I'm definitely in that category. And I thankfully was mentored well. And the first place I ever stopped was OAPN. And that was absolutely the right way to go. And then I went to Max and then happened to get to go to parts of APAP in January. So this is kind of the tale as old as time over here. And I think that I would not have wanted it any other way. Just like what you're saying, the fish in a big pond. I think I was growing as the ponds got bigger too. And that was definitely what needed to happen.
That's great. That's a great way to say it all. Alyssa, I'm wondering.
I agree that they all serve different purposes, and I wouldn't really want any of them to go away. But as a presenter, also, and not just as a presenter, everybody, our budgets are tight. So it gets hard. Like, how do we go to so many? I just can't afford to go to more than maybe two a year. And how do I pick which to go to? And so
Yeah.
that's been my challenge lately. And I not to throw more into the mix, but Folk Alliance is another one, and they're going to be in Chicago next year. And they do try to move around, but I also feel like if we're talking about independent artists, Folk Alliance is so good for that, for artists, independent artists, especially to like start to get their feet wet and learn more on a different level, because it is so focused on artists. Whereas, um, I don't know from the artist side how they do it APAP, but I would recommend also go 1 year before you try to do all the things or sell your car or what, just to kind of figure out how the layout looks.
Yeah, and that's something I always tell folks that like and even to presenters, I'm like, you just need to come just 1 year just to see everything, and like just know that it's almost like taking a college course. That like, yeah, you may not quite understand like everything that you're being told right now, but like that second year, you're gonna get it. Just because it really is it's a hard environment to be in, especially for artists, you know. And even like I went to Folk Alliance a while ago, and like even like how they do artists, it's such a difference of like there's like those two tracks that they have, um, that that I want to bring to APAP to be like, oh my God, we need to model this. Um, but other things where it's still such a large learning curve of being in that space as a first timer.
Yeah. And yeah, listen, we did a Folk Alliance as well on the artist side, and it is an experience, right? You still have that juried showcase versus the independents there, which is always a nice blend. But these worlds can be hectic and crazy and busy, and really, it's like you have to go in and you have to be consistent. It's like with anything, right? It's a workout training routine. You're not going to see the results unless you're consistent with it, and so on the artist agent side, if you're not going to making it a plan to attend these conferences, whether it's OAPN 1 year, Max another year, Arts Northwest, depending on where you want to tour, presenters being in these, you start to make the relationships with these agents, and sometimes the agents change, and then you can meet the new agent representing the artist that you're booking. But people's names are known over the years, and I think that these are the space where you start to build these relationships. And even though I'm sure presenters have no problem receiving tons of email, cold call booking emails, I think that the presenters that are attending these conferences have made these relationships with their long standing, I would say friends or acquaintances in the agent and artist world that I think they tend to rebook with. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Olivia, Alyssa, are you reconnecting with old acquaintances and working with them and finding new artists, or are you also finding new people here? What is that ratio? Do you guys respond to cold call email bookings, or do you tend to work with those in the community that you've already met?
I mean, even people on the call right now, we're rebooking, looking at you, Nikki. So I think familiarity is fantastic because you're right, we're getting drowned with emails. But if I see an email from somebody that I know and know has done a fantastic job, absolutely, that's going to be on the top of my mind to respond to.
That's cool. And yeah, shout out to Nikki. Showcased at our 2024 conference, rocked it out, and now she's on our board. So, hey, Gloria, good to see you too. We see you, but we can't hear you. Alyssa, did
Well,
you want
thank you
to
for all
comment
the
on that as well?
information. Yes, all the information and everything that's stated and with APAP, because we were thinking about doing APAP. So, thank you so much for all the information. And like I said, we're so grateful for these kind of outlets to be able to showcase our music or even to learn and to network.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yes.
I think that networking is kind of the key. Um, I agree with, and I'm sorry, I already am blanking with the presenter before me, Olivia, like that is yes, because it's hard to wade through. You get so much, but if you know somebody, you know somebody's name. But that's the thing at whether it's APAP or any of the regionals, like kind of like JG said, like if you're sitting there, talk to the people next to you because you don't know what could happen, and you make that connection, and then that makes you stand out.
I always like to tell people
Yeah.
this example. My very first APAP, my in-person APAP was 2023. We were virtual for 21 and 22. I'm standing outside our expo hall, and I feel like I'm doing everything wrong because it was my first year, my first actual year of running the conference. And there is there was this artist who was just giving me a hard time because I don't think they were having a great time up until that point, and a presenter that also kind of holds APAP's feet to the fire. And they were just standing next to each other, and I witnessed them just start a conversation. They were talking about how bad the coffee was at the Hilton. And they were talking, and they were like, "Oh, well, I'm a jazz artist, and this is what I do." And they were like, "Oh, well, we have this jazz series." And like we've been finding it's a little bit difficult considering like Trump's attack on DEI and this, and they were talking. And they seemed very buddy buddy. They went into the expo hall very buddy buddy. And that particular presenter lives fairly close to me and presents in my region. And sure enough, if it wasn't that I saw that artist was coming that summer, like, and I knew that they weren't on that roster before. I knew they weren't. But, like that, it does happen. Like these conversations do happen. And even sometimes beforehand, I mentioned that so much of the work of OAPN and WA and Max and APAP, it happens, that month or two beforehand. It's when you're getting those attendee lists that we send out. And I see everybody's attendee list, and I know how hard we all work on those to make them as in depth and nutritious for everybody, so that you're making those decisions and you're making those meetings happen. I've walked into it where I'm just like, yeah, like somebody booked me just based upon what they saw on my attendee list. Now, I won't say that happens all the time. I do want to give that little warning there, but it can happen that these conversations are continuously happening, whether they're in the space or not.
Yeah. And I think what we can all take from this now is start a conversation with somebody over bad coffee because that is going to lead to hopefully a booking. No, this has been great. We're coming down to the last few minutes here. Are there any other questions for JG or any other topics that maybe we didn't touch on that anybody wants to quickly address? No? Well, fantastic. Well, let's please give JG a round of applause. Thank you so much for taking time. I know how busy you all are out of your busy day to come talk with our folks. JG, what do you want to end on?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Literally, call me, email me. I love talking to people. APAP is having our 70th anniversary this year, which means prices are cheaper. Like across the board, like I said, artists are $70 just to come to APAP. We're really trying to make sure that people are in that space. We're going to have a gala as well. So if you like to be around rich people and bid on stuff, yay, come. Um, and most importantly, we have scholarships. We've invested a lot of money in our participation assistance fund. So if you're looking for ways, trust me, I know all the ways that you can save money, whether it's through APAP or through some of the regional arts organizations. Remember that a lot of them got a lot of money from Mackenzie Scott, so they're starting to funnel money out. So talk to us. We know these tricks and things, and I'd love to see you all at APAP. Yeah. And I love to see you at WA and Max. And I think I'm going to try to do OEPN this year. I'm going to try, so I'll be there.
Fantastic. I owe you an email, JG, so I will message you after this. Well, wonderful. We're so excited. There's just a lot happening in our worlds, and OAPN, we try to go to as many conferences as we can. Our board president, Erin Miller, who now is the director of Stocker Arts Center, I know she is a big fan of APAP. She's been involved with OAPN for almost as long as Janet has. And we all go to Max. We're actually going to the Napama retreat in Tucson this upcoming weekend and next week. Is anybody else going to be at Napama? Cool. And then yeah, we're trying to hit all of them, and I think it's my goal to be a first timer attendee at APAP as well next in early 2027. So uh, everybody just keep on rocking out with your conferences. And of course, as JG said, I'm also always available to anybody. If you don't already have my email, I will toss it in the chat. But you all receive communications from me for this session, so I assume that you know how to get in touch with me. Well, we're gonna close things off. Thanks again for joining us. Stay tuned for our next upcoming Tuesday talks as we lead into our conference year, which is October 18th through the 20th in Hamilton, Ohio. Until then, everybody, have a good one.